We're four friends with hot takes on food media.
And we're here to review and recap all kinds of food shows in bite-sized seasons.
Plus, virtual potlucks, cooking adventures, and food memes.
Welcome to Pod Appétit Gourmet Takes.
Hey everyone, it's Justine.
And it's me, Meg.
It's just the two of us again.
Again.
Amanda, who's usually here, I think partied a little too hard on Halloween, so...
Halloween Eve. Today is Halloween. Happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween! A week later for everybody else on the internet, but...
It won't be so topical when this airs, sorry.
Yeah. We're having spooky season still. Be jealous of us. Anyway, this is Pod Appétit Gourmet Takes Podcast. This season we are covering the first season of Taste the Nation with Padma Lakshmi. But just to note, season 2 of Taste the Nation premiered on November 4th. Future for us, past for you. And each episode is about a different holiday.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, that's cool. We'll have to talk about that on the back burner.
Mm-hmm. So before we get into, I was going to say tasting the nation, which I don't like that phrase.
I like it.
All right. We're going to talk about what we've been up to lately in our kitchens, cooking, eating. Meg, what have you been up to?
I don't have a lot to report. I feel like I'm going to repeat some of Amanda's talking points from several months ago because I was recently moving, so not a lot of access to my food or my fridge or my cooking materials, but I'm in my new place and I have a gas range, which I know everyone says is better, but I kind of hate gas ranges because I'm a paranoid person and I'm afraid that the gas is going to suffocate me or that my house is going to explode. And also this particular range seems to run very hot, like so hot that I went to touch the handle of my pot and it burned me, where that had never happened on other ranges before. So I need to figure out what is up with this range, but I'm sure I'll get used to it and hopefully it'll be good for cooking.
Watch out with the bottom of your pans.
Yeah, no kidding. I'm also afraid for my pans now. I'm just like, is this just going to burn through the bottom of one of my cheap ass pans?
Time for all new pans for Christmas.
Time for La Crusade everything.
Yeah.
Le Crusade, I don't know. Justine, what have you been up to?
Also not that much. I've been a little bit sick the past few weeks and like aches and pains and fatigue. It's what happens. That's fine. I did make a smoothie yesterday, a new smoothie, a pumpkin banana.
Oh.
Yeah, it had some dates in it. It was sweetened with maple syrup, a little bit of vanilla. It's just a way to drink your vegetables, which was very tasty.
Yeah, I have a vegetable and fruit shake every morning. I highly recommend.
But yeah, sometimes you just need to like take care of yourselves, take care of your house, you know, and you can't always cook the freshest, best foods, but it's okay. No need to feel guilty. I'm talking to myself now. So let's talk about this show.
Let's do it.
On the menu for today's episode, we have episode 7, The Original Americans, and episode 8, Dancing in Little Lima. So let's start out. Episode 7. The Hulu description is, what is the original American cuisine? Padma travels to Arizona to eat food that is indigenous to this land. She tries some dishes and explores how Native Americans seek to reestablish a connection to the past to protect their future.
So I think I probably know the answer to this question, but have you tried any of the foods that were made in this episode?
Do you mean like the dishes together or the individual like vegetables, or do you mean
I
like
mean the dishes.
pack rat?
You're like, no, I've never had corn ever, or beans.
This episode sparked a memory in me from when in like elementary school we did go to like a Native American indigenous people's sort of, I don't know, like it's like a fuzzy memory of like some sort of presentation of like the way that they lived in the land. This would be like the Wampanoag, I believe, in Rhode Island, Massachusetts area. And they did make food and we ate it, but it was sort of like trail mixy and, you know, indigenous to where I'm from, which is not the desert.
Yeah, well, I asked just because I feel like there were so many unusual foods in this episode that unusual in the sense that I'm sure a lot of non-Native Americans probably haven't eaten before. And it was really fascinating to see, well, these are things that grow naturally in the state of Arizona, but most people who aren't Native American have probably never tried them before. And I found the intro to this episode really interesting because Padma starts talking about, like, what is Native American food? What is First Peoples food? And she first talks about fry bread. And I thought, oh, well, yeah, that was what I first thought about when I thought, what is Native American food? I've had fry bread many a time, and it's very good. It's pretty much like savory funnel cake, but instead of like drizzled out like funnel cake is, it's a flat piece of bread, as they show in the episode.
Well, we've got to that in Rhode Island, what's called Doughboys, and you sprinkle it with sugar and cinnamon.
Yeah, powdered sugar or honey. And then they went into the history of fry bread and they said, actually, this is very non-traditional. And they went on to explain how fry bread was born from when Native Americans were forced onto reservations and they only had rations or ingredients that were also forced upon them because they didn't really have, you know, baking soda or flour and this wheat flour that the Europeans used. And so fry bread was really not a traditional food at all. It was really only within the last 100 years or so that they created this dish out of necessity. So already this episode started out very interesting to me because I was like, oh yeah, I guess I had never really considered before that these are non-indigenous ingredients, but it seems so obvious when someone says it. So I feel like there were a lot of moments in this episode like that where I was like, oh, wow, I hadn't considered that before. And I feel like I should have.
I'd never heard of fry bread before, but also it reminded me of the flour versus corn tortilla thing we had learned. So many things of like, flour forced upon people.
Right? For reals.
I did know that, like, there were government supplied foods and ingredients and that they're generally like trash foods and that there is a big, you know, obesity, diabetes problem because fresh food is so scarce.
Yeah, it's a real systemic problem and it seems like something that they've been struggling with for a while. And that was definitely an appropriate theme for this episode since, of course, it's all about food. So it was like, how do they reclaim food sovereignty, which is kind of the big theme of the episode, and sovereignty in general, and how one can gain independence and freedom and strength through independence of food.
It all ties in with the sovereignty, as you were just saying. And it's very complicated and complex.
So in both of these episodes we're talking about today, Padma tries rodent, or at least she looked at rodent in the Peruvian episode. I don't know if she actually tried the guinea pig or not. I was a little unsure about Padma in this episode. I don't know if I was reading too much into it, but I feel like she was not as wholly embracing of the foods in this episode as she was in other episodes. Usually she's so game to try everything. And I feel like in this episode she was a little hesitant. I feel like sometimes she wasn't like as effusive in her praise, but I was just kind of like, come on, Padma, like show the same like openness and flexibility that you do for all the other foods we've seen you try so far. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe I was just misreading it.
No, I don't know if you read into it the same way that I did, but I feel like the ending of this episode was super weird.
Well, so she said some things that I feel like are maybe kind of like tired stereotypes, or she said like, I feel like all Native Americans are so connected to the land. And I feel like that's a real oversimplification. I don't know if that's the right word, but that is something you hear a lot, and to the point where it's like, what do you mean by that? Is this just sort of your broad strokes view of what you know of certain Native American tribes? Or, you know, it's kind of like that scene a certain group of people as a monolith, right?
Yeah.
To say that all Native Americans are connected to the earth, I feel like that's maybe a bit reductive.
Yeah. At the end, when they were all at the table and she's like, you're the most like well-behaved people I've ever sat at a table with. I'm like, what is happening? What is she saying?
I thought that was a bit of an odd comment too. I was like, I guess maybe she's trying to say like, I don't know, usually the friends I spend a lot of time with are like so rowdy or what. I don't know what she was trying to say, but
the way it was edited though didn't come off very well.
No, it did not. It sounds like if you were editing that episode, you would have put that on the cutting room floor, and I think I probably would have too.
Yeah. I don't know if it's because like off camera or something they were like, oh yeah, we would eat like this, we would eat with our hands and stuff like this, and she wanted to like prompt it. Mm-hmm. But it came off like, I don't want to be like, it came off as offensive, but it surprised me that I'm like, what is happening?
I will say that I did also clock that moment. I was like, Padma, I don't know.
Anywho, all that aside, someone who's not used to like eating rodent or pack rat, you know, they may feel a bit hesitant, you know, about that. Naturally.
But she wasn't hesitant at all to try pig face, you know. So I feel like it's roughly equivalent in the terms of what someone might find to be unusual to their palate. So I don't know.
Yeah. Or even antelope. I don't know. This is a whole like sort of vegan thing as well of like he'll eat a cow and have no problem with that.
Right. That's true. Although she did seem to come around to the pack rat, the glazed pack rat. She said, more pack rat, please. I did think that was pretty great.
Well, I mean, it was agave and sumac glazed.
It looked good. I would definitely try that.
Tastes like chicken. Cut to BMW car commercial.
Exactly. Yeah, I think a lot of these dishes sounded very interesting. I thought the Three Sisters salad looked really good. So the Three Sisters are beans, corn, and squash. So that's what they meant by the name of that. So this was Teperi beans, acorn squash, Hopi blue corn, and Navajo steamed corn. And it also had Nopales cactus, cilantro, scallions, dandelion greens, and a whole bunch of other stuff. And I discovered this really cool feature on Hulu where you can click on like the further details of an episode and say, send me the recipes from this episode. And it will send the recipe to your Hulu email address. And I was like, oh, that's so cool. So I sent the recipes for this episode to my email. But then when it arrived, I was like, is there a mistake here? Because the recipe that arrived said bison with Three Sisters stew. And I was like, they didn't make bison, they made antelope. And it wasn't really a stew. It was like grilled veggies that they mixed together into a salad. So when I looked at the recipe, it was really, really adapted for ingredients that you would be more likely to find at your average grocery store. I don't know how easy it is to find bison, for example, but they had really changed the recipe. Like instead of blue corn, I think they took out the blue corn entirely. And instead of the Navajo steamed corn, they had canned hominy. So there were a lot of differences, but I'm like, well, I don't know. Maybe I should try to make this recipe as they've adapted it for the average grocery store.
I did know about that feature, and I was going to tell the listeners that when we do our potluck, there are recipes available for each episode. It's not every recipe. Sometimes there's one, sometimes there's three. You never know what you're going to get. You just click that button, and it gets emailed to that Hulu email address you have.
Yeah, it's a cool feature. I think that's really neat.
But this salad, this pretty much is what I eat every day now. Various roasted vegetables and greens. Like we've got a lot of squash because it's squash season right now. So I've got acorn squash. We've had dandelion greens, and then just like whatever beans we have, we throw on top. So I watched it and I was like, that's very similar to like what I eat every day.
Yeah, I thought it looked great.
I'm for it.
Let's see. I've had elk and reindeer before, but I don't think I've had antelope. I had real reindeer in Alaska.
In Alaska? Wow.
Yeah.
Dude, I want to try acorns. Everybody was all about acorns in this episode, and I'm like, all right.
I'm pretty sure I've had acorn before, but I'm not 100% sure. Well, I should say I'm not sure I've had well-prepared acorn before, because growing up, we had an oak tree in my yard, and I mean, I was a kid. Did I eat acorns off the ground? Yeah, I did. Were they good? Not really, but I don't think you're just supposed to eat raw acorns that you've just shelled yourself as, a 6-year-old or whatever.
You do you. I don't know if I've had cactus. I may have.
Oh, that was one thing I wanted to mention. They mentioned prickly pear cactus and Nopales cactus. So with the Nopales, it's the actual, I think it's called pad. It's the full green, spiky, fleshy part that you eat. And with the prickly pear, it's the pinkish purple fruit that grows on top. And you'll find a lot of prickly pear foods in Arizona because it's sort of been turned into this like kitschy souvenir thing. So like if you go to the airport in Phoenix, it'll be prickly pear jam, prickly pear gummy candies, prickly pear this. And it's a pretty popular flavor in the region, and it's good. It really does taste jammy. It's kind of raspberry-y, I would say, like maybe the tiniest bit sour. It tastes like fruit. It's good. I like it.
You can definitely get like cactus here in California. I just have not been brave.
I was really curious to see that apparently barrel cactus also have fruit. That was the bright yellow fruits they were picking off the cactus. And I didn't know that that was another cactus fruit that you could eat. I would like to try that.
I like that there were always onions growing at different times of the year. That was very cool. And then she was like, there it is, there. I think it's so funny that like Padma's like, show me what's growing here. And it's just like a whole, like, it's land as far as the eye can see. And she's just like, tell me what's growing here. And I swear the woman was like, well, a
lot of things. Please be more specific. I thought the Choya buds were interesting too. These were another part of yet another cactus, the Choya cactus. Choya are interesting. Again, I didn't know there was an edible component to them. There's a certain type of Choya. I don't think it was the type that they ate from, but there's a certain type of Choya that's colloquially known as jumping Choya. And it's called jumping Choya because the spines are so long and pointy and sinister that like they will poke you. You think you're far enough away from the cactus, but it's like it jumps out at you and gets you. Oh my God. It doesn't literally jump, but it feels like it's jumped on you.
I have a traumatic memory from when I was like 2 years old of touching a cactus.
Oh no.
I was in like a shopping cart, like sitting in like the front seat, and they were buying a cactus and they put it in the back. Oh, and no. I just reached my hand back to just grab what was ever behind me, and then I'm just like, what's this? And then I pull, and then like my hand just has all like the little things in it, and I'm like, what?
That's the worst.
Keep your tiny children away when you're shopping for cacti.
Don't put pokey plants next to toddlers. That's our PSA.
Yeah. They had their decolonized Thanksgiving at the end. Which, spoiler, we will talk about season 2. There is another Thanksgiving with indigenous people that she celebrates.
Oh, cool.
But overall, interesting episode. But yeah, it was definitely much more outsider-y view.
How do you mean?
I don't know. I feel like that vibe you were saying earlier.
Yeah, I do feel like Padma was maybe a little bit more trepidatious than I've seen her in other episodes. Again, I don't know if I'm reading too much into it. And of course, what was left on the editing room floor, like what didn't we see in her interactions? But I think I've seen her embrace other foods more readily in other episodes.
Yeah, I think all the food looked great.
I thought it looked very interesting. Yeah.
We're going to take a quick break, and then when we come back, we're going to talk about Little Lima. And we're back. Episode 8, Dancing in Little Lima. Here is the Hulu description. Peruvian cuisine hasn't quite had its moment on the American food scene, but Padma knows the power of a great bowl of ceviche. She visits Paterson, New Jersey, a Peruvian enclave, for a deeper look at this vibrant culture. New Jersey.
So as we go through this season, Padma interviews a lot of people who talk about their immigrant experience. And we've heard some folks saying that, you know, maybe they wanted to sort of fit in more, or how Padma was even talking about how she wanted to change her name at some point. And some of the other interviewees we've heard of said similar stories about like, oh, we just tried to fit in. We just tried to be as American as possible for a while. And I found this episode interesting because it seemed like this particular Peruvian community was like, yeah, we're Peruvian. It seemed like everyone they interviewed had a lot of pride about their heritage. They were really excited to share. Of course, everyone they've talked to in all these episodes have been so happy to share their culture. But this episode especially, that I remember hear any interviewees say that they tried to fit in. It was more like, I'm Peruvian and here's what Peruvian food is and here's how we dress. So it was really interesting to see how this particular community's immigrant experience was maybe a little bit different than some of the other folks we've met throughout the season.
I feel like I was watching like Peruvian in the Heights. They were going to start singing and dancing any minute.
It did have a lot of dancing. One of the interviewees taught a Peruvian dance class for the children in the community. That was really cool. A big theme of this episode was that a bunch of the majority of the population here in Patterson was first generation Americans, at least. So in other words, there were more American-born Peruvian descendants in this community than original immigrants from Peru to America. So a big theme of this episode was, how do they keep their culture alive when a bunch of the younger folks haven't even experienced Peru firsthand? So this dance class was one way in which the community was trying to keep certain traditions going.
The dance class, the food, the language.
Padma was dancing so intently with that young gentleman that I was like, how did he not just pass out? I would pass out if I were dancing with Padma and she was just locking eyes with me the whole time. I'd be too intimidated and impressed. I'd fall over.
She is a beautiful woman. Yeah, the dancing was great. I like the first interviewee, Eric Ramirez. He had an interesting story of like being born here, but then like the only Peruvian food he knew was like his mom's like homey Peruvian food. But he also wanted to go to culinary school, and he knew it wasn't there, and he knew it wasn't in the restaurant that he was working at. So he made his own restaurant after going to Peru and really learning all the different sort of, they called it microclimates.
I think this really ties into what you were saying in our last Pod Appétit episode, where how food naturally evolves, especially when you get a younger generation of people who want to, you know, add their own spin to their traditional cuisine. And I think that Eric Ramirez here was a real example of that, because he's a young person. Like you said, he grew up eating a lot of Peruvian food, but in his mind, he hadn't really thought about it as a child beyond just being the food he ate. And it was very rustic and homey is how he described it. And then, like you said, he got classical French training, and he was like, well, I see this disparity between this food that I grew up loving and the food that I've been trained to view as high-end cooking or elevated cooking, so to speak. So yeah, we get these new generations of younger people who are like, my food can be as widely renowned as any other type of cuisine. So yeah, I think that he's really done a lot for putting his own spin on a food that means a lot to him.
Yeah, and that's such like a great story and something we've discussed a lot in the past year. And especially with like, you've mostly only ever seen it with like white people going to like these countries and learning and bringing it back and be like, hey, I opened up a Peruvian restaurant. Isn't that neat?
Yeah. And his restaurant was so successful that he now has 4 restaurants, I believe. So it's been hugely popular.
The llama in ceviche is life.
Ceviche is life.
Are you thinking Ted Lasso?
Oh, my goodness.
I am.
I have had ceviche many times before, but I did not know that there was this so-called tiger's milk that they marinated the ceviche in. So ceviche, if you are not familiar, is raw fish that has been quote unquote cooked or marinated in an acid, typically lime juice. And I always thought that the juiciness of ceviche was just the lime juice, but it turns out it's lime juice blended together with a bunch of other spices and flavorings and fish itself. So you get this really smooth, really liquidy tiger's milk is what they called it, because it does look quite milky. And then that's what the fish marinates in. So yeah, I learned something new.
I've never had ceviche. It looks like something familiar though. I don't know, but maybe I'm just thinking of ceviche.
Maybe you're thinking of poke, which is in one of our upcoming episodes.
Maybe. I like learning about all of these foods.
Another thing I learned is that ceviche is Peruvian, because when I first had ceviche, it was in a Spanish restaurant. So I just assumed that it was a Spanish dish. So yeah, I feel like I learned a lot in this episode.
Yeah. He talked about all the different influences that happened to make this dish. And even like how slavery informed this dish as well, with the African influences.
Yeah, Padma was saying that Peru, like America, is a nation of immigrants, and they said that there is a lot of Spanish, African, and Asian influence in Peru. So you do see that amalgamation of cuisines in the Peruvian food.
I just have one note that's rice and French fries, but that's the next guy.
Rice and French fries. I mean, Padma said carbs on carbs, and I was like, yeah, I failed to see the problem here. French fries make everything better. So that was the lomo saltado was what that dish was called. And that also had sirloin steak stir-fried with red onions, tomatoes, red wine vinegar, and soy sauce. And the French fries. The French fries were stir-fried in there.
So much. It
looked good.
Yeah.
So did the tamales, the Peruvian tamales, which used cassava instead of masa.
Yeah, cassava. I have a bag of cassava flour for my gluten-free stuff.
Nice. I love corn masa so much, but I would try any tamale. I don't think there's a tamale I don't like. And you fold it like a baby.
Oh my God. Or do you fold a baby like a tamale?
Both.
Oh my
I will
God.
say on the production side, I had a little bit of a quibble with this one, which was the subtitles, because they were just, well, maybe it was my settings, but it had never looked like this for me before. But it was just purely white subtitles with no drop shadow, no outline to the subtitles. And it was often on like a white background, so I couldn't read it. Like the wall behind the interviewee in several moments was white. So it was just white on white, and I literally couldn't read it. And I was like, come on, Hulu, I can't read your subtitles.
So there was, of course, the sort of quote-unquote political aspect of this episode, as there is in every episode.
Yes. This episode was maybe a little different in that aspect, because I would say more of the focus was why they left Peru, because it seemed like maybe more of a shared experience for this community, because at the time Peru was pretty much being, I was going to say terrorized by terrorists. I'm sorry, I can't think of a better way to phrase that right now. But essentially that was what was going on. So that seemed to be the impetus for a lot of the Peruvian immigrants to come to America. So I think maybe that's why they focused on that one more like shared reason, where it seems like some of the other immigrants from other countries, it's like they might have had similar reasons for why they had left, but maybe not the same countrywide upheaval that people in Peru were experiencing. And I also feel like this episode, less than previous episodes, hasn't explored too much how they might have been discriminated against in America. I don't think many of the interviewees talked about struggling to fit in America. It was more like, here's what I escaped from, and here is how this community in America has helped me.
Yeah. And it looked like a pretty, like, solid, like, Patterson, New Jersey. This is all, like, Peruvians.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
But then also people are like, why would you want to leave here? It's just like Peru. It's interesting. It's such, like, a locked-in community. I think that that's really neat.
Rosa, who was the woman who was one of the original immigrants, so she was born in Peru and immigrated to America, and she teaches the dance class. She summed it up very nicely, I thought. She said basically that you bring the best things from your country, food dance and children. And I think that that's a pretty universal statement. And I thought that was quite nice.
In the beginning, she went to that bakery and grocery store. I'm like, I wanted to know more about those baked goods.
That store looked amazing.
Yeah.
I went to shop in there. I also feel like I've learned more in these episodes because, you know, I was kind of familiar with German food. I was kind of familiar with some Indian foods, whereas I was not as familiar with Peruvian food or with Navajo and Apache food. So I do feel like I'm learning more in these episodes.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's what I would say about like the last episode, as you just put it, Navajo and Apache food, not just like, this is Native American.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
It's great talk about those 2 episodes. We're going to switch now to our back burner. But did you want to talk more about season 2? Did you want to learn about season 2 of Taste the Nation?
Tell me more.
On IMDb, it is also called Taste the Nation: Holiday Edition.
So does it have the episode list? Are we getting some holidays that Americans might not be familiar with, like Diwali or something like that?
There are only 4 episodes listed, and we've got Happy Holidays, which is Hanukkah, Truth and the Turkey Tale, which is Wampanoag Nation in Martha's Vineyard. Cannot say it any other way. Mojo Ho Christmas or Moho Ho Christmas, which is a Cuban community, and then K-Town Countdown, Lunar New Year.
Oh, cool. I really like this premise. I was wondering what direction they would go for another season, and I'm glad that they are doing something different. That's a really cool idea.
Yeah, and they're all, I mean, it's November, bring in all the holiday shows now. Yeah, I'm excited. I think I will just watch it right after we're finished with the season 1.
Yeah, I think so too. And as Justine said, these will have already aired, or the first episode will have already aired by the time you hear this episode. But
they're all coming out. They're all
all
out
at the same time? Oh, but not for us yet in the past. But look forward to a back burner in which we can talk about these.
Let's talk about something else we've done in the past. We hosted a Reddit talk on r/food, interviewing Jessica Lee Clark Bojan, aka the Pieous. Okay, first of all, let's explain what a Reddit talk is.
Yes. So a Reddit talk is a new feature that they've been rolling out. Only a few subreddits get to participate in this really cool event at the moment. But so a Reddit talk is basically a live podcast, or if you're more familiar with the Reddit format, it's kind of like a live audio Ask Me Anything or AMA. So basically it's a live event. You use the Reddit app and you get to hear us talk with a guest. And we talked with the Pieous, as Justine mentioned, and upcoming, you want to plug it? It's very exciting.
Oh my God. It's so exciting. Like that thing you do, how did we get here? Like
that Paul Rudd gif. Look at us. Look at us now.
Look at us. We have an upcoming talk with Kenji López-Alt.
What?
Friday, November 12th at 12 p.m. PST.
Yes, don't miss it. Like I said, it's live. It's not going to be recorded. You won't be able to access it afterwards. Although, side note, we will try to make it available for you listeners of Pod Appétit somehow. But it's going to be super exciting. You'll potentially get to ask Kenji a question yourself. That's one of the great things about this. If you have the app, you can raise your hand in the app, and we will try to get in as many audience questions as we can. It's really exciting. The topic is going to be Thanksgiving. So Thanksgiving prep, Thanksgiving cooking. If you need troubleshooting for your Thanksgiving menu, think of a question to ask Kenji and come on over on November 12th.
Yeah, don't ask us how we got this, because it's blowing our minds.
A big stroke of luck.
Yeah.
The moderator of Our Food is a fan of ours, which is just so lovely. And they invited us to host the talks on Our Food.
Yeah. So we are thrilled to be a part of this early development, this new platform on Reddit.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Very cool. So come join us. Like I said, get a Reddit account, go on the app, raise your hand. It's so simple. Just be there live with us.
We'll be spamming you with promo for the Kenji talk in the upcoming days and weeks on our socials. So sorry, not sorry, but keep an eye out if you want more details.
Yeah. Well, now it's time for some shout outs. And I'm so sad Amanda's not here today because all the shout outs are like about her. Not all of them, but. So when you were gone, Meg, Amanda and I, we talked about candy corn.
Of course, I listened to the episode.
Yeah, so as you know, Amanda is a candy corn fan, and she wanted to feel not alone in the world because candy corn sucks.
Okay, so here's the thing. I do like candy corn in the smallest quantities imaginable. Like, they're so good, but they're so sugary. In fact, I just bought some for myself yesterday because I was like, oh no, Halloween, I don't have any candy. And I think I ate like 3. I think I'm just an old person now. I can't handle sugar anymore.
Well, it's kind of like that with jelly beans too.
Oh, I don't know. I could eat a whole bag of jelly beans.
I would get a tummy ache.
Jelly beans are like my playing video game snack.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Ooh, good to know. So anybody, those who wrote into us on our Instagram, people who like candy corn, Nerdified Jen.
That's my dear co-host on Indoorswomen. Thanks, Jen.
The Unwritable Rant, Edmonton Tourist, and Global Bakes by Tanya. And those who didn't like candy corn, Heidi from Vibrant Visionaries, and Mary.
Okay, so Mary is my dear mom, and I have to call you out, Mom, because I know that you buy those bags of the giant cinnamon Jelly Belly candy corn every year. So, j'accuse, mother.
It does look like our listeners are in favor of candy corn, pro candy corn. So there you go, Amanda.
This is a candy corn safe space.
Yes. Listener Raven did write in about Crab Rangoon. I'm going to read what she wrote to us / to Amanda. Amanda is not alone. Crab Rangoon is so good. I was born and raised in China, but I love cream cheese and seafood. I don't care that it's not authentic. That's kind of how I feel about Philly rolls too, even though I was a Japanese major and usually prefer more authentic sushi.
I loved this comment because I also really like Crab Rangoon. I also got a minor degree in Japanese language and lived in Japan for a little over a year. And yeah, Philly rolls are so not traditional. You will not find a Philly roll in Japan. And I do like traditional sushi more now that I've had traditional sushi. I know that sounds very snobby. I will have a Philly roll occasionally.
Yeah, because as she says, cream cheese, seafood, yum.
Mm-hmm.
Yum,
it's
yum.
a good combo. Why does it work so well?
Nobody knows. Magic. That's what we said. Crab Rangoon are just magic, okay?
Really good, yeah.
Okay, thank you to everyone who left comments about my brownies on Instagram. I know they
My brownies, so
my
popular.
Brownies. They're just my brownies now. They're not even like this recipe sort of, name to it. They're mine. They're mine now. Thank you, Angus Eye Tea Podcast, Janelle Wilke, Kale Blake, and International Nourishment. They all wanted to share. I wish I could have shared.
They looked delicious. Raspberry and chocolate is a great combo.
Well, thank you, everybody, getting in touch with us on social media, sharing what you thought of the episodes, of our Instagram random polls about candy corn. Don't forget, you can get in touch with us by email and leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. That would be so wonderful. We love reading all your comments about the show, what you like, maybe what you don't like. I don't know. Let us know. Email us. We'll talk. Next time on the podcast, we were talking about the next 2 episodes of Taste the Nation, the Pad Thai Gamble and Zen and the Art of Poke.
I'm excited.
Yeah, delicious.
Love poke. Happy Halloween from the past.
Ooh. Ghost cake! Get your ghost cake shirts
Cake.
at podappetit.threadless.com.
Oh, yeah.
Thanks for listening to Pod Appétit Gourmet Takes.
We'd love to hear from you, so find us on Twitter and Instagram at pod_appétit.
and on Facebook at Pod Appétit Podcast.
You can also email us at podappetitpodcast@gmail.com and find all of our episodes on our website, podappetitpodcast.com.
Hey, Upper East Siders. Welcome to Three Gossip Girls, a Gossip Girl podcast.
I'm Liz, an OG fan of the teen series who watched it live back when it aired in 2008.
And I'm Michelle, a newbie to the show, so I have no idea what's to come, including who Gossip Girl is.
What a gem. What a gem. We also had our good friend Ingrid join us for the first season of the podcast as well.
So, if you like ridiculous ship names,
a special drink paired with the episode,
or maybe just hearing old friends dissect this teen drama in all of its glory, this may be the pod for you.
You can join us 30-something-year-olds every Thursday as we unnecessarily dive deep into an episode of Gossip Girl.
We are currently starting season 4 of the show, and we cannot wait for you to hear some fun changes.
More guests, more predictions, and more drama. I mean, this is Gossip Girl after all.
You can find us on all social media platforms at 3 Gossip Girls Pod and listen on whichever podcast platform you enjoy. XOXO!